second commission meeting of the month of January 2019. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the brand new gavel. They're still looking for the other one that's in the debris over on 9th Street, so hopefully they'll at some point find it. At this time, I would like to call on Leon Miller, if he would lead us in prayer this evening, if he would stand.
May we stand? May we pray. Our Father God, again we come to say thanks, O Heavenly Father, for the blessing that you have stored up on us, O Heavenly Father. We thank you for guiding us through Hurricane Michael, O Heavenly Father. We thank you as you gathered us together to put the pieces together, O Heavenly Father, and to bring this community back together under one tent, O Heavenly Father. O Heavenly Father, again we want to thank the Commission and all this Lynn Haven peoples who have opened their hearts to others, O Heavenly Father. Continue to bless us and guide us in the right way. In thy name, for Christ's sake, ever. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. It's lovely to see so many people here tonight, and once again I'd like to thank Bay District Schools, especially John Cannon and his staff here at Lynn Haven Elementary, for making us welcome and giving us a place that's centrally located that we can come to meet. So this evening, the next item on the agenda is number 3, the Mayor's Report. It's been a busy 2 weeks. Probably the most important thing that has happened since we met before as far as the city is we did have another visit from Governor DeSantis, as well as the federal FEMA director, as well as several other federal and state FEMA officials. We met on January the 10th over at 80 Harris Learning Village. We met with all the mayors. We had representatives from the county commission, and we also had members from the press who were present. Governor DeSantis spoke on 2 very important issues, one being his continued discussions with the President of the United States regarding the severity of this storm and his belief that the President should make sure that this storm is given the proper FEMA reimbursement, hopefully the 100% category, possibly the 90%. So he's working very hard for that. He's also working with Congress. Congress also has the power to pass a bill to bring this about for the 90% using the Stafford Act. And so he is working on that. He is also calling upon Florida to expedite FEMA reimbursement, as we talked about at the last meeting, as the city and all the other cities and the county, as our invoices are turned in, they go through a federal process before they get back to the state of Florida. And our state has a different provision than other states, than several other states, in that it requires that these invoices be paid in full before we can be reimbursed, which puts a tremendous burden on the cities when the debris hauling bills are often more than the entire city budget. So he's working very hard for that. He is also in the process of reversing a former order by former governors that would possibly allow FEMA to advance cities up to 50% of their projected FEMA reimbursement, or the cost of the debris hauling. So all of those are positive steps that the governor is taking. I feel very confident in what he's doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing those things come to pass. Also, I participated yesterday in the Martin Luther King Day Festival for the first time at Sharon Sheffield Park. This was really a momentous occasion for us to be able to host this in our city. It was the first time we had done it, and particularly because our park is clean and it's beautiful right now thanks to the efforts of the city manager and the staff and all those who've helped. And it is named for Sharon Sheffield, who is a pioneer in our city. She is an African American who was a former Lynn Haven commissioner and also a mayor in Lynn Haven. And so it was really a joy to have her in the park yesterday and to be able to host the event. I know the city manager and others have already spoken with Myron Hines, who is the president of the Accure organization here in town, and they are possibly making plans that we would become the home for this festival. And we even spoke of maybe following the path of Florida Avenue as we do for our Christmas parade, to have the traditional march for that event. So that was very exciting. Another meeting was held on Friday, January the 4th, with our FEMA representative Amber Guy, as well as our members from Tetra Tech who work so hard for us, and city staff, as well as state and FEMA federal reps. I have spoken by telephone twice with Tom McCool, who is the federal FEMA coordinator who's been with us from day one. He was responsible for bringing that mobile unit to the city of Lynn Haven literally 2 days after we were able to clear a parking lot. And I don't know how we were able to get him here with us, but I'm thankful that we've had him with us. And he is a very cool person, Tom McCool with the federal FEMA organization. Another meeting that I had was also with the city manager and some of the city staff with representatives of the United Cajun Navy. Also, my friend Patria Malden, who's here, she also met with me. She's been helping with some of that volunteer work. And a representative from the Heartbeat of Backroads who works with the United Cajun Navy. They have 2 exciting projects that they're going to work with the city of Lynn Haven on. I can tell you just some very brief details about that. One is that they are in the process of getting an application that they'll be bringing, not to be confused with our Hurricane Relief Fund applications, but this is another application that they will come and have available, giving you permission to allow them to come on your private property if you have work that needs to be done on your house, trees removed, building, that kind of thing. And all you'll have to do is fill out that application with your address, and they will visit you. But the application is just you're giving them permission to visit you. And I'm telling you that they are reputable 2 groups of people, and you can speak with them without fear. There's no money involved. It's just they're going to come do wonderful things on your property. And in relation with that, the United Cajun Navy has what I call a brilliant idea with this same allowing them to come on your property. They will remove any trees that you still have left on your property, and they're looking for a specific size as well. And they're going to set up a wood and lumber operation very close by here and build something called Lynn Haven rafters out of the debris on our property, and then turn around and give us the money back for the city. Is that not amazing? So I'm looking forward to both of these projects getting underway, and as we get more information, we'll be meeting this week, we'll let you know. On January the 12th, we all participated, many of us in this room, in the first One Street at a Time volunteer cleanup here in Lynn Haven. It was extremely successful. We had almost 200 volunteers. Again, United Cajun Navy was here. We had equipment operators who just came from Alabama with equipment to help us clean the streets. We had couples from the beach who were Canadians and winter visitors who heard and just wanted to come and help. We had residents who are displaced from Lynn Haven who came back to help. And we cleaned 17 blocks. And if you haven't been down Pennsylvania Avenue, it looks really much better. And then Community Services Director David Horton and his staff, they've gone back behind and they're planting winter ryegrass, so it should get green on that street and start looking a lot prettier. If you have a rake, a shovel, and a strong bat and want to have a lot of fun with us, February 16th we'll be cleaning New York Avenue, the street that runs right behind the school here. And we turned it into a party, and we had one of our vendors that actually cooked lunch for us the last time. And we'll be doing that again this time, finding someone who wants to do that. On that street? 92,000 cubic yards of debris on that street the volunteers picked up. A round of applause? Yeah. Pretty cool. I've met several times with the city manager, with our legal consultant, Adam Albritton, and with our accounting consultant, Jay Moody. And Jay Moody and Adam have both done a really good job for the city, but I want to particularly tell Jay Moody that his accounting makes me very calm. I just want to tell you that you have been a calm through the storm, and we've been discussing our financial status, our pending payments, strategies for keeping our city in great financial shape. I am happy at this time to tell you that we have not borrowed huge sums of money. And city manager is going to be talking with you some more about the strategic plan that has come up, and I think it's a good plan. I also attended the first Bay County Emergency Recovery Task Force meeting at the county government building on Thursday, January the 10th. This is a task force made up of one commissioner, one county commissioner, and the mayors from each town. And the county has hired a consulting group, and they formed various committees, And basically, it was the first meeting, but they'll be moving forward, and I just am attending as our voice and to see where that's going to go. Don't have a great deal of information yet, but I'll be bringing that back to you. And then finally, met one more time, and that was yesterday morning before I went to the festival, and that was with Congressman Neil Dunn, Senator George Gaynor, and Representative Jay Trumbull, as well as the other mayors and one of the county commissioners, Griff Griffiths. And we met to talk about the needs of the cities. I will just share with you that we pretty much said some of the same things that we've been saying at the other meeting with the governor, just about the needs for financial assistance for the state to listen to us. And Governor, I keep calling him Governor, but George Gaynor does look very gubernatorial sometimes in his suit. But I know we have a strong voice in both George Gaynor and Jay Trumbull as the Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives begin to meet this week. So I'm sorry I was so long-winded, but it was a busy 2 weeks, and that's the end of the mayor's report, and I will pass over to Commissioner Dan Russell.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had a few meetings with the city manager as well as with Jay Moody, and I think they've got the city going to where it needs to go, and I'm confident that that's going to happen, and I'm excited to see the future of the city. A couple of issues I've had, I'm still dealing with contractors' issues, unfortunately, and want to thank the police department for helping me with one of them. We've got a couple of elderly people that have been, in my opinion, defrauded, and I believe the last I'd heard was that the police department and the state attorney's office is looking at charging this particular contractor with defrauding the elderly. So I'm glad that that's moving forward, and I also think that the planning department and permitting department is overwhelmed, and I know they're overwhelmed. And we've had issues with contractors, and our CILB board, the Construction Industry Licensing Board, is kind of fallen by the wayside, and it's one of the things I think that I'm going to be pushing the city manager to reinstate, whether we do it through our permitting contract or if we do it through the city. The CLIB is the Construction Industry Licensing Board. That's the overseeing board for contractors. And we do not have that board at the moment, and so we really don't have any recourse to go after contractors that are licensed here that misbehave. In particular, I've got one that I'm dealing with that has caused problems, and fortunately, Amanda Richards and Michael White and the contractor sat down and they worked their issues out, and he's going to do what's right and fix the problem. But if he wouldn't, then we would have to come before that licensing board to address the issue. But other than that, I think everything's moving forward, and I appreciate the steering of the city manager and the mayor, and look forward to where the city's going. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tender?
Yes, thank you. I attended the cleanup on Pennsylvania, had a great time, and I agree with the mayor completely. It was actually fun, and I talked to many people, and we had some folks that came over from Destin to help clean up Pennsylvania. And I talked to one man in particular. He brought his Boy Scouts with him, and they just had such a great time. And as I rounded the corner, they had shoveled out one scoop of debris, if you will, from a ditch, and the water started running. These kids screamed, jumped up and down. It was worth their whole day for being there. So it was very gratifying. And I had one gentleman tell me, he said, I like to clean house, I like to clean anything, because that's all I have to think about. So he said he would be at every single one. Anyway, it was great fun. I've just been fielding calls, have talked about contractors and whatnot. And I was told, for those who might have this question, if you suspect that a contractor is committing fraud, you can always file a complaint with the Sheriff's Department too. And they're following up on those fraudulent contractors. So, and just the regular things. I've had a lot of people ask about the library, and a lot of people ask about the senior center. And after talking to the city manager, I try to explain to them that unfortunately those two places are kind of on the bottom of the totem pole as far as priority. But if anybody should ask or want to know, the senior center or the Council on Aging over on Frankfurt is busing. They're bringing the bus over and picking up our Lynn Haven seniors. Because I've talked to 2 of them that get that bus every day. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think that's about all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. Oh, sorry. And I've already lost my thing. I had something on the agenda regarding the police department, item 24, and at this time I'd like to withdraw that. Okay, would you like to put that in the form of a motion, Commissioner Tender?
In the form of a motion. Yes, I'd like to put it in the form of a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to strike item 24 from tonight's agenda, discussion concerning the Lynn Haven Police Department. Any discussion from the board? Any from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. The motion is approved. Moving to Commissioner Barnes for his commissioner's report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. A couple weeks ago, I had a meeting with the city manager, our city auditor, Richard McKinney, as well as Mr. Jay Moody. We sat down and talked very extensively with regards to the finances of the city. So I had a lot of questions. I think some of those have been answered. And we'll just leave that part of that. The next thing was yesterday I went to the MLK Day. Had a good time, met a lot of people, and I too would like to see that come to Lynn Haven. Don't want to take anything away from anyone, but they seem like that they're very comfortable here in Lynn Haven. Just seemed like it was the right fit, and so I was glad to be a part of that. And that'll be all.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I also had some meetings with the city manager and talk about finances and all that good stuff. But also did have the opportunity to participate in the One Streets, and it was a phenomenal opportunity. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stay as long as I'd like to. I had a prior commitment, but actually I didn't have to stay that long. It was amazing to me how much progress we made in such a short amount of time. And the biggest thing that I wanted to mention about that is we had to sign in. I thought we were maybe signing waivers, but which is probably not a bad idea. Anyway, but what we're actually doing is tracking our volunteer hours because we get reimbursement from FEMA. That's huge. That's huge. So I would definitely encourage everyone, if you can, to come out. And it was great fun. We had a lot of fun doing it. And so anyway, I would definitely encourage you to participate in that next time. A couple of unique questions that I had this time around for the last couple of weeks is appliances. Are we picking up appliances? When are we going to pick up appliances? I went over that with a city manager. And also storage units, so our storage pods. I know the city has several, but I'm getting questions about that. Are they legal? Are they not legal? How long can we have them? Can we not have them? So I think that's something we'll have to address in the future. But that was a question I had as well. And then lastly, I just say that I have MPOAC next week. As everyone probably knows, I participate with that on behalf of the TPO. So if anybody has any questions or anything about that, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be traveling down there on Wednesday and Thursday. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 5, which is the city manager's report. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mayor. As you can tell, I've been meeting a little bit. I've had my time in front of each individual up here quite a bit over the last 2 weeks, and it's been very positive. It's been great to have the leadership that we have, and them give me some of the insight, hopefully, of the people that they represent. There's a few things I'd like to bring to everyone's attention. One being the appliances that Commissioner Friend brought up. We are in the process of start picking those up. However, I was told by the contractors that a lot of scrappers have been helping us out, so that's some cost the city won't incur. So I encourage all scrappers to get all those appliances off the side of the road. Would be great for the city of Lynn Haven. We did get approved by Triumph Board for our to go ahead and submit a full application for train. That's to deal with the city and train and for a parking lot in the industrial park. So we're possibly gonna go after some Triumph funds to help the industry over there. Kind of give you an idea of what the city has done as far as debris pickup. We've accumulated 1.1 million cubic yards of the city that we've picked up so far. We still have an estimated around 300 plus thousand cubic yards left. As of this Friday afternoon, when the contractors get through, I'm having them cease work for 2 weeks. So we will not have any contractors other than the city working the next 2 weeks, starting January 25th. I'll be bringing them back February 11th. One of the things that I've noticed is we have done a very good job of picking up debris, and a lot of the trucks are just circling the city, and it slows down traffic. I want to give people opportunity to get things out on the street, and once I pick back up on February 11th, as I was discussing this with the mayor, I'm going to be looking at the date, and it'll probably be shortly coming thereafter. The city of Lynn Haven will be through picking up debris. So, anything after that will be the responsibility of the homeowner. So we've already over 90 days out. If you're going to get it, I recommend that you go ahead and get your debris out, especially over the next 2 weeks. And then we'll be setting a deadline that I would want the commission to approve. One other thing that we have had some issues, and Commissioner Russell hit it on the head, is trying to service the citizens of Lynn Haven. So one of the things, as of starting January the 28th, our hours of operation are going to change at the city. As far as the service center, the water department, and public works department, there'll be people answering the phones, and you come in, pay your bill, you come in, get a permit. As of January 28th, our new hours will be 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, so it adds an hour in the afternoon. And also, we'll be open Saturday from 7:30 to noon. My hope is to have the operations open a little longer. Due to the traffic within the Bay County, it's hard for a lot of people to get off work, try to get the permits they need. I want us to be accessible and serve the citizens of Lynn Haven. So we'll be doing that. Porter Park, expecting the RFP due back the 26th of this month. Then also the 24th of this month, the temporary buildings and the demo of the old City Hall PD department should come in on the 24th. So I'm hoping this second time around we get more bids. And lastly, as you know, we've been estimating bills, and this month will be the true reads for the first time since we true read them last in September. If you recall, in October we waived all the basic charges. We did not do any billing. So you'll have some September usage, a little bit of October, November, and possibly some December actual usage. But some of the accounts, we've already scrubbed some of the data, and some of the accounts are going to be extremely high, and that's due to some breaks. So we need you to contact the city. If you get an abnormal bill, let us look at it. And what we're going to do is that it's going to be revenue loss for the city because it wasn't anybody's fault. We have to add that to other losses of water consumption and wastewater. So bear with us. Don't have a heart attack if you get a large bill. We recognize several of them, and we're going to try to be proactive and actually call you before you call us. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have right now.
I thank you very much, and I also commend you on some of the out-of-the-box ideas that you've had, and I think they're going to be very beneficial to the city, so thank you. Item number 6, the attorney's report.
No report at this time.
Thank you. And then moving to item number 7, this is the time, if you've not attended one of our meetings before, this is public commentary. And if you have something that you'd like to bring before the commission to address the entire commission, you're welcome to do that. You just raise your hand and come to the microphone and say what you'd like to say. I also give opportunity during the meeting on each item. So if there's a particular item that you want to address, there's also an opportunity to do that throughout the meeting. So is there anyone who has something they'd like to say? Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Thank you to Judy for mentioning, what did you mention, Judy?
It must have been important at the time.
Yes, it was. It'll come to me. Okay. And a thank you to Mr. White regarding the water bill. I received mine today. Is that a final one? I mean, is that a true one?
They should be true, however, several of them be extremely high, use some brakes and things of that nature. If you didn't have any brakes, they should be true.
Okay, good. And are we skipping Florida Avenue, Mayor?
We are not skipping it. We did clean that one right before the Christmas parade, and so it's in better shape than the others, and so we'll come back to it. We're gonna go ahead to New York.
And I missed the last one on Pennsylvania for some reason. Are we putting them on the website, the dates and the times and
They're
the
on the
locations?
city, yes, and city Facebook and mayor's Facebook, and a lot of people are sharing it, and then the news media has been very
Okay.
kind to us as well, so
Okay.
it's getting out there.
And how often do we have our water tested in Lynnhaven? The water that goes to the old town homes, the historic homes?
I believe it's annually, Mr. White, as far as Mr. Kidwell's
Greg,
here.
could you help me with
Do you
that?
mind? Thank you.
Hi, we take over 20 water quality samples every month, that's bacteriologically. And then we do quarterly samples for a whole range of other things. Some samples we do annually, so, it's a whole big picture, it's not a.
Can I ask by who does it? Is it the city? City does it?
City staff with a laboratory across town that actually runs the samples.
A laboratory in
In
Lake
Bay
County?
And some of the samples are shipped out of state.
I had a problem a couple weeks ago. We don't have an automatic ice dispenser. I make my own in a tray. And I put the water in the tray. The tray was white, and it looked off color to me. And I think, well, maybe it's just me. But I put the tray with the off color water, I thought, in the freezer. I left it in the freezer. Maybe a couple weeks, not a couple days or a week and a half went by, and I took out the ice, and I had not taken out the funny colored ice tray. I took out another one. And then I took out the funny colored ice tray, and I put them side by side, and that one tray is very obviously a different color. I saved my ice cubes of the different color and didn't know whether or not I should be taking them to a lab to see if there was something funky this one particular day.
Mr. Kidwell, could I call on you again?
Sure. Without having seen it, it's more likely air. Air can form these little micro bubbles, and it will look cloudy in a ice structure or in a glass of water. If you pour it and it's got air in the system from a main break or pumps kicking on and off, you can get small amounts of air entrained into the water and it'll look milky. Kind of sounds like that's what you did if you've got some air trapped in that ice. If you thaw it out and the ice cube dissolves and it looks clear, it was air.
May I bring my bag of ice cubes
Sure.
too?
I'll be happy to look at
Oh,
it.
thank you. And I finally remembered what I wanted to thank Judy for was, it left my head again.
Contractors?
Contractors. The lineup of when the library and the seniors, and we had I had a lady come to me from church yesterday, 2 days ago, and said she dearly misses the senior center. I mentioned her going down, but now I know that there's a bus there, and I will tell her that. So thank you very much.
Very good. And before I recognize the next person, I wanted to thank Greg Kidwell. He's over our water department, and through this entire disaster, he's been on top of it, and we had water much sooner than we expected, so I just wanted to recognize you for that again. Who else? Yes. Go ahead.
Bon Schultz, 509 Pennsylvania Avenue. I thank you for cleaning up my street.
There was no favoritism shown. Yes.
My name is George Hines. I live at 1603 Rhode Island Avenue in Lynn Haven. As a representative of CURE, I would like to say that we enjoyed the city of Lynn Haven. The park was a little confined because of the fence around the library area, and next time we hope that it be moved. We talked to Ms. Gaynor about the power structure around the light systems that was covered. We couldn't use them when we needed them. But other than that, it was a great time. We enjoyed it. We're not a Panama City organization. We're a Bay County organization. So we expect to move, and Lynn Haven offered themselves up to us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Mr. Holmes. Yes, Mr. Walker?
Yeah, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. The city, not the city, but Bay County was in charge of the recycling, okay? All that has been removed. Some people are asking about, is there any other recycling spots open? Is there a tendency to get it back? The reason is substantiated by now that you don't have the recycling, your garbage has doubled. So now that's going to be burden on our garbage pickup. Do you have any idea of what's going to happen?
City manager, go ahead.
Yes, I've spoken to Bay County. They have pulled most of all of their recycling right now because of the debris and everything they're doing. Is our intent, hopefully we'll be getting that back. Time frame, they have not let me know.
Yeah. I just wanted to key it in that I'm getting some questions.
Yeah.
And I noticed carrying the garbage out doubled. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, sir.
Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace. And as we're reconstructing our houses after the storm, we need to have the work inspected. And as you might imagine, the inspection agency is completely overwhelmed with all the stuff that they have to be inspected. So they've adopted expedited procedures. In my talking with potential contractors, some of them have actually complained that they think there's corners being cut on the inspection side, and although it's not a problem for them, there are other people that can take advantage of it. So, since we're subcontracting the inspection, perhaps we could suggest that maybe they hire some out-of-towners to come in and help them.
Okay, thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Young. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Teresa Garcia at 111 Missouri Avenue. I was wondering if anybody had figured out yet on FEMA if we're going to be able to rebuild our homes.
Just a general question, like rebuilding your home on Missouri?
Yeah, because we're in the highest flood zone.
Yes.
So like I can't even get a roofing permit. I can do nothing without signing waivers saying that I will not sue the city, I guess, if they come through and say that my home cannot be rebuilt because I have more than 50% damage. So I need to know, this is 3 months out. Nothing's been done. I cannot live in my home. And nobody can give me any answers.
My suggestion would be to schedule a meeting to come in and speak with city manager, and perhaps we can get some answers for you and direct you to the right people to speak with.
I have been in 3 times already.
To speak with city manager?
Well, to the city building committee to try to find out what's going on, and I went again today. They told me about this meeting, so that's why I...
Okay. Do you want to...
Ms. Garcia, could you give me your phone number? I'll call you and schedule something. How's that?
Okay.
Right there. Your address, please.
We're meeting with several FEMA representatives weekly, and so I'm sure we'll be able to find you the answers that you need.
And we also have some training coming up this Thursday with FEMA as it relates to what you're talking about. So we'll have some employees that's certified within the city, as well as we got a bunch of questions we need to find out, so.
Okay, thank you. Sorry everyone's going through these things, it's horrible. Yes, sir, in the back of the, okay, go ahead.
Hello, Mayor Anderson.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. My name is Walter Pawerson, and I live in 1612 Indiana Avenue,
Okay.
South. And I'm going to just read. I'd like to address an ongoing flood issue
Okay.
that we've been dealing with for many years in our street due to 7th Street Canal getting full of water, and when it rains, the water backs up. And,
7th or 17th?
17th.
17th, okay, go ahead.
And the flood goes to our street yards and eventually in our house. And the water can get up to knee deep or above knee deep. Our first flood was in 2013. At that time, we didn't have no flood insurance because we were not in a flood zone. So we did some upgrades. We spent like $20,000 for upgrades, including rain gutters, retaining wall. We built up the driveway. We built up the yard, 20 truckloads of dirt. We closed the garage, and we had carports and backports. But we've been lucky for many years, but until October 10 happened, we've been suffering. But we've been suffering before the hurricane came. We have a lift station for our sewer, about a foot away from my son's house. When a street is flooded, we cannot use the tub because the water from the sewer backs up. And of course, we cannot flush the canal because it might overflow, and it contaminates water outside also. One night, about 3 weeks ago, I came home from lunch, and it was already raining hard for hours and hours, and I had to take my shoes, my socks, my shoes off to get into the house from my driveway, where there was about 4 to 5 inches of water. We cannot live like this anymore. It's not normal, and it's very stressing and a lot of headaches. So it's a major issue. Our street's like a big pond when it floods, And I hope you, our mayor, and the staff and public works will acknowledge our cries for help. And we cannot live like this. We are a citizen of Lynn Haven, and we must be protected.
Your first name was Walter?
Walter.
And your last name again is?
Pawersa.
Could you spell it for me?
Spowierza.
Thank you. If you would do the same thing for the city manager, if you don't mind sharing your telephone number, and he will get with you, and we'll set up a meeting and go forward from there. And I'm so sorry. Are you in your home right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I have features and videos to show.
I believe you. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak this evening? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Warden, and I also live on 17th Street and Indiana Avenue.
Okay.
And when y'all first took the ditch down, we thought it was going to be good. We weren't going to have all those floods anymore.
Yes.
But it's worsening, and like he say, when I come home, I have to take my shoes off too to get to my door, to get inside, and
Has the worsening started since the storm, since the hurricane?
No,
Before that?
When it rains,
Okay.
anytime it's a hard rain, it always happens. It's like water.
On
The
Indiana.
street is high up on 17th Street.
Yep.
And it just run down on Indiana, on the corner, and 17th and Indiana. And where the ditch was at, it just holds all down our street.
Okay.
We used to take my daddy's boat and could paddle all the way up the street when we was kids.
Right, right.
And we're still doing that, now.
That's not good. Can you also leave your phone number and your address with Mr. White, and he'll get with you in Public Works as well. It's going to be a busy week for Public Works. I do know that when the 17th Street ditch was covered during that process, that the engineers and the contractor, I wanted to see the back of it where we had the beaver condominiums and all that. We had 70-pound beavers back behind there when they were doing that. If you remember that a couple of years ago. But I did go that entire pathway all back behind our cemetery and all the way, followed it to the bay. And there are possibilities of places that may have filled in since the storm with lots of debris and all that could be influencing. And I'm not saying that's the only thing, but there are things that we certainly need to get on top of if there's some of that is influencing it worsening, or there may be a completely different issue, but we need to get to the bottom of it over there. Okay, sir, come on up.
13 Colorado Avenue, want to add to the water list.
Okay.
We have serious water problems, and
I know right where you are.
we've been flooded twice now, and just in a 2-inch rain, 2.5-inch rain, you're scared to death because it's just like the 1 inch reaching inside the house, and it looks like there's a problem that can be solved. But when I talk to people about it, the first thing they say when they get out of the truck is, "There's nothing we can do about it." Well, they back.
We need to know who's telling you that.
We need to start thinking about it, because we have became the retention pond for 4 streets. So,
Okay, Mr. White would like to address that.
Yes, sir. Very familiar with your area, very familiar with the issue. We already have everything engineered. Actually, before the storm hit, I was fixing to put out the RFP to get your area done. It's actually right at a $800,000 project to fix that water. We have to work on several retention ponds. We have to move water from one ditch to another. So I am very familiar, and it is engineered, ready to go.
well, that's good. Just hope we don't flood again.
Yes,
while
sir.
we're waiting.
I'm very aware of your instance.
Appreciate all your help.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your city.
Thank you for coming out, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak now? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
My name is Thomas Brown. I live at 308 East 18th.
Hi.
And we've had a couple of fires over in my area.
What was your address again, sir?
308 East 18th Street.
Okay.
And we've had a couple of fires over there, 3 actually. And 2 of them, they had to run hoses from the credit union up 17th and turn and come down Michigan to 19th. And I was wondering what's the possibility of maybe getting a hydrant on 18th. And that would probably serve that whole area over there, because that's a long ways to run hoses.
Certainly is.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to the attention of the city manager and hopefully a member of the fire department as well. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir, come on up. We're going to have to start adding some coffee and refreshments if we're going to have this kind of. It's good to see you all here tonight. Go ahead, sir.
Terrence Calhoun, 905 Colorado.
Same place.
Sure, yep. So, from what I know, which I don't know much about it, I just moved in 4 or 5 years ago, but we had the flood twice. The bill was approved 27th September. I was wondering, I know you spoke about it too, but how soon are we talking here?
That is a very important question. It's hard to answer due to the fact of the hurricane.
Right.
So one of the projects that in my funding plan that I'll be discussing about earlier is I'm gonna have to strip those funds from that project right now because it is $800,000, and the city is going to have estimated close to $30 million in debris removal. So I'm going to have almost every dollar I can to get that bill paid. But I promise you that as soon as I get back on those, I will.
So nowhere in the future.
I don't know. It'll be in the future, but we're going to get through some of this cleanup first.
But with that said, sir, we have been, this past week, another meeting we had with some of the FEMA coordinators who actually work with different organizations in Florida. They are going to be working to bring grants forward to the city to help us in the rebuilding process. And so just because that particular pot of money is not going to be available for a while now does not mean there won't be some grant funds accessible, and we will be looking in every.
I just don't want it to get lost.
No, it will not, because that has been a hot spot for a while, and we had a plan to fix it. And like many other things, those plans have been wiped away in
Right,
one
understand,
day.
understand.
But that doesn't mean there aren't other avenues we can follow,
Okay.
looking for grants and other funding. So,
All right, thank you all.
you're welcome. Is there anyone else who has an issue they'd like to bring before the commission tonight? Anybody else? Okay. All right, then moving on, thank you for coming and speaking, by the way, and bringing those things to our attention. Lost the first page there. Item number 8 is a public hearing, and so I'll need to state the time. It is 6:46. Public hearing is open. This is the second and final reading of ordinance number 1070, amending section 9.01.02 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code, ULDC, to remove the words act of God. There is no vote needed on this until we get to item number 11. And Mr. White, would you go ahead and read that ordinance, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ordinance number 1070, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending section 9.01.00 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to non-conforming situations, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date.
Thank you. And before I ask for public comment, we did have a question last time that I think was pertinent. We have a lot of people here that were not here at the last meeting. So I'm going to ask our attorney to clarify what the act of God words mean in this ordinance and why they're being removed.
Mayor, an act of God, thank you, Commissioner. Act of God is a term of art used sometimes by lawyers.
I think you need to be closer to your microphone.
And in this
Sorry.
case, we're not removing act of God in any, it's not in a religious capacity, it's in a legal capacity because there's a term in the current ULDC which says that buildings are destroyed by more than 50% due to an act of God would have to comply with other requirements. What the city is trying to do is make it easier for those that have a building that may now be non-conforming to be able to build back. That business owner will still have to comply with other rules and regulations, but this is simply an attempt to make it easier for owners of real property and buildings on real property to construct back. That being said, again, let me make it clear, act of God, that term is simply a legal term. This is not referring to any religious term or removing a religious term.
Thank you very much. Is there any comment from the board on this item? Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Walker.
Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I appreciate that. I looked up act of God. You're right, it's a legal term, but there is no case law on it in this respect. Okay? There is case law dealing with oil spills, and that's about it. However, I understand it. However, in your explanation as to what you want to do with it, what you're saying is bigger and better. You want to let them build it the way it was before, so that the damage would reoccur again, easier. Your words, to use the word easier. So it looks like we're taking a step back in the codes to allow them to build it the same way it was, which allowed it to be destroyed. And if I'm reading that wrong, that's the way
I think you're reading it wrong, Mr. Walker, because they're not saying to build it back exactly like it was. They're talking about building it the same size, building it in the same area, that kind of thing. To say there's no case law to support it is a pretty broad statement. And I'm not contradicting you, I'm just saying that's a pretty broad statement. I feel pretty confident in what our attorney has advised us on it. And I think that it is a positive step to try to help our businesses to stay here and to be able to continue to conduct business without having to leave the city, because we certainly don't want them to do that. So that would be what I would say.
Because it's one, it
Go
deals
ahead.
with only businesses.
It's relating to businesses.
All right, I understand.
That is correct, right? It's relating to our
And
businesses and residents as well. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could just.
Yes, please go ahead.
The alteration, the underlined portion on the physical page 2 of the proposed ordinance clearly states that such is completed in conformance with the Florida Building Code, all municipal, county, state, and federal laws, as well as compliance with all state and federal administrative rules and regulations. So if you had a building built in 1930 using 16-penny nails, and now the Florida Building Code requires something else, you're going to have to comply with that. Well, one of the issues we run into routinely is the scope of the building. The City of Lynn Haven has some regulations pertaining to a minimum size. And older buildings were smaller generally, and in some cases here. So this would allow you to build back, but that doesn't mean an individual can ignore all the rules we've had since the 1930s when it was originally constructed, including state and federal regulations, stormwater. There'll be other things. This is not just a blanket authority for an individual just to go back and build it the way it was. What it is an attempt for the City of Lynn Haven to try and make it as easy as possible as they can, because there's only so much the City of Lynn Haven can control. There's state laws that they cannot overturn.
I just wanted to make sure we're not going backwards.
Thank you,
Get
Mr.
the
White.
same damage again. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
I noticed you changed the word. Does it change the percentage required?
Sir,
said
if you would
50% earlier.
approach the podium, I'm sorry.
My name's William Carr, 1601 Indiana. You said the act of God, the verbiage, but I heard you say 50% of the structure. Does it change the percentage?
I'd like
Just
to,
the
I'd like to
verbiage itself?
let our attorney address again. Go ahead, please.
The percentage is in place, but now you no longer have the language act of God. So,
So even if they have 50%, they still could be deemed a total loss? Because the percentage
by
isn't
whom?
changing.
By whom?
Well, I don't know. You guys
If
said the
it's, there's an
percentage.
act, if there's destruction due to an act of God, which previously the ordinance said if it was more than 50%, then you had to build back to all the updated ULDC.
Okay, so it doesn't
So
change.
now, if your building was destroyed 100% by an act of God, then Lynn Haven is trying to make it as easy for you to rebuild back to the same size or the similar or same size and scope. Now, there may be some other rules that Lynn Haven cannot alter, but Lynn Haven is going to try and make it as easy for that building owner, landowner.
But what if it's 51%?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so if it's 51%, then
Could be
it meets
20%.
the threshold.
Could be 20%. Or
Okay,
it
I
could
was
be
just asking if there was a
100%.
percentage that deems
Nope.
what is.
The language is being removed, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sure, go ahead.
Amanda Richard, Planning Director. I just want to add that this is not related to the FEMA houses in floodplain thing. That they're 50%. That's a different issue.
Okay, thank you.
And what Ms. Richards is referring to is the NFIP and the city's participation in that. And it goes back to a question in public comment. Again, this ordinance only applies to the things that the city of Lynn Haven can change. The city of Lynn Haven cannot change federal laws, and that is explicitly laid out in this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good clarification to make. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment about this item? Okay, then this public hearing is closed at 6:53 Central Time. Item number 9 is another public hearing, the final reading of ordinance number 1071. This is amending section 5.02.00 of the United Land Development Code, ULDC, allowing City of Lynn Haven residents to place a temporary housing unit upon their property for a limited amount of time. And again, there'll be no vote until item number 12. Mr. White, would you please do this? Please read the second and final reading of ordinance 1071.
Ordinance number 1071. An ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending section 5.02.00 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to temporary uses and structures, repealing all ordinance in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Is there any comment or question from the board regarding this item?
Mayor, if I may, I just want to clarify, the maximum amount of time is 24 months, correct? It's 18 months with a 6-month extension.
Correct.
Thank you, Mayor.
I am correct in that, am I not? I believe I am. Okay, thank you. Anything else? No more questions? Okay, then this public hearing is closed at 6:54 p.m. Central Time. We now move to the consent agenda. We have only one item, number 10. This is the approval or disapproval of the minutes from January the 8th, the regular meeting. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I just need one for each. Okay, let's try it again.
So moved.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? And there appear to be none. Are there any questions or discussion regarding the minutes from the last meeting from the public? There appear to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the minutes stand approved. Old business, item number 11, this is the second reading of ordinance number 1070, which amending section 9.01.02 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code, the ULDC, to remove the words act of God. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Been a motion for approval and a second. Any questions or discussion from the board?
Mayor, I would just like to point out, maybe in the future, just go ahead and put out there that if in fact we allow that language back in at some point, if we could just have it as natural disaster instead of act of God. Just a thought. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Any comments or questions from the public? There's been a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the second ordinance is approved, the second reading is approved, I'm sorry. Item number 12, the second reading of ordinance number 1071, amending section 5.02.00 of the the Unified Land Development Code, ULDC, allowing City of Lynn Haven residents to place a temporary housing unit upon their property for a limited amount of time. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions from members of the board? Any from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Ordinance 1071 stands approved. This is a long agenda. Moving to item number 13, approval of the city's NPDES to discharge stormwater, and I believe we have Phil Mount to speak to us on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Commissioners. Thank you. Since we don't have a projector, if any of the audience cares to see, I'm going to keep one with me, cares to see what I'm discussing with the commission.
You might want to wait for the microphone, Phil.
If anybody wants to see what I'm discussing with the commission, it'll be up here, and I'd be happy to go over it with you.
The microphone's going to have to face you to avoid the feedback, and then your adjustment is on the stand, Phil. On stand. You just turn it and pull up. There you go.
That's not part of my time.
Go ahead.
This is my, no approval, I'm not coming to you for approval. This is my semi-annual coming to you, the commission, to discuss the city's stormwater permit, the permit to discharge stormwater from city property. We wrote into our permit for this 5-year time that this would be a public event, semi-annually. Thank you, I'm not bringing donuts. The permit has 26 permit elements in 6 categories: public education and outreach. I'm going to have to go ahead and read all these for everybody.
Sure, you can turn it around if you'd rather face the crowd instead of us.
Oh, that'd be bad. Public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection, elimination, construction site stormwater runoff control, post-construction stormwater management, pollution prevention, and good housekeeping. This presentation is one of our permit elements, so I get to check off another box. The stormwater pollution demonstration, which is one of our elements, was done last year by myself to over 500 students in our city schools. Nobody threw water at me. The city's One Street at a Time initiative turns out to be a permit element also. And the statistics that I have were 150 attended and 92,720 pounds of debris was collected. Maintaining the city stormwater map is also a permit element, and The map was the foundation of the upcoming city master plan, which the engineering firms are working on. The map had been in process for years, chipping away at what we have in the city, drains, pipes, whatever. And it is what it is now. It shows up to 2029 stormwater inlets. So when someone says, or someone comes up and says, gee, I'm frustrated because you're not dealing with my inlet, you can say, well, we're working on it. We got over 2,000 of them. Please bear with us. The map was also used to plan for the no dumping drains to bay signage, which I'm giving each of you one, such that you will know what it looks like when you're driving around the city. We decided to post these using the map now. Using the map, we decided to do Pine Forest subdivision, and we used the map to ascertain how many inlets were in the subdivision, and that's how we purchased the labels, and just one feature of benefit of the map. Any questions?
Could you clarify the acronym NPDES to the audience?
Oh my gosh. It is a federal program, National Pollutant, National Stormwater.
I'm sorry, but it's just the acronym for the federal agency, correct? That's what they're doing.
NPDES, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Thank you.
I think I should have that somewhere. Any questions from the public, please?
That's for her to
Say it 3 times fast.
I'll allow it. Mr. Mount will take any questions from the public at this time if you have some. I don't think you have any.
I broke the mud.
It's all good. So is there a motion for approval of the city's NPDES to discharge stormwater as presented by Mr. Mount? Or you aren't finished yet?
There's no approval necessary. This is just one of the permit elements that I'm doing semi-annually for the permit.
Okay, I just had designated on my agenda that there was approval necessary.
I know.
Mr. Attorney, okay?
If he's not requesting action, there's nothing for the board to consider.
Thank you so much.
I'll make sure I don't have that on the next one, if you'd let me back.
Of course. We appreciate your time and energies. Thank you so much. Item number 14.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the HM 2018-001 Disaster Recovery Consultant Services Contract for Tetra Tech. Mr. White, could you please clarify what this is for everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Y'all selected, commission selected sometime back Tetra Tech to work with the city, which will be working with myself, the accounting firm, Warren Averett, as far as our accounting team, to help us recover from Hurricane Michael. So I'll just give you a few things that this agreement that they do for us. One is they review all the bills, they do the monitoring, they scrub the bills, make sure everything matches up before we get ready to submit to FEMA. They're also a CDBG consultant, which will help us a lot with rebuilding of the city, grants and different federal programs. They will be helping with that. Hazard mitigation, finance and grant management, disaster engineering, FEMA public assistance. So it's very important. They've done a wonderful job. I got a lot of kudos from our FEMA program manager, how well Tetra Tech is performing for us. So I would submit to you that I think you need to approve this agreement.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there questions or discussion from anyone on the board for Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to know, the cost of this, is it a percentage of the work that they're doing, or is it one flat rate that they're charging the city?
Inside this agreement, there's their hourly rates for different processes, but it's based on what they're doing for the city at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions from the board? Are there any questions or concerns from the public? Mrs. Walker.
Thank you again, Judy, for asking about the pricing. And my question is, are we keeping them for a long-term situation?
Yes, ma'am. They'll be here a while.
A while until we...
Till we get all this cleaned up. And the biggest thing, a couple things I mentioned was the public assistance helping us maneuver through what FEMA red tape. They've been through it a lot. Also, the CDBG will help us put all the buildings back and the parks back, and they have a plethora of services that they offer. They're a very strong company.
Are they, do they do the physical work, or they're just the consulting and tell you where to go from there?
They do a little of both. Right now, Tetra Tech is also monitoring all the trucks. So all the big trucks you see somebody in usually a car behind them. A car behind them. They're sitting there writing down the location, the GPS coordinates. If we have to cut a tree, we got to keep up what the diameter of that tree was, how long the tree was, take pictures. So they take all this stuff and they compile it, and one of their submittals may be 600, 700 pages long. So it's very detailed.
Are they local?
No, ma'am.
Out of state?
Yes, ma'am.
From?
Maitland, Florida.
Oh, in-state then?
Yeah, I'm in-state, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, but please go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
just wanted to ask the city manager, is this, their fee, is that something that eventually FEMA will pay for?
So, yes, ma'am. Certain parts of it definitely is, like engineering services, things of that nature, is definitely reimbursable.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please.
Maybe city manager, would you want to mention the not to exceed part? That may help some people feel a little bit. Or I can if you'd like.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll pull it up.
Thank you, Mayor. The not to exceed is $1,066,139. So.
And that's on this task
That's
force.
the not to exceed. This contract is not to exceed that amount. $1,066,000.
No, that's just task force.
But Mr. White also needs to clarify that is not going to be the entire cost to this organization. It's just this particular
Just
task.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Everybody's good? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so that stands approved. Moving to item number 13, which is discussion and approval to allow the city manager to utilize general and enterprise funds to pay for Hurricane Michael recovery. And Mr. White's got some detailed information on this. Pardon me?
15.
Was I reading the wrong number? I can't say. I'm sorry, I said 13 instead of item number 15. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hines. Mr. White has some information to clarify why he would be requesting this. There has been a lot of discussion using the accountant, using our attorney, Mr. White, myself. He's also had input, which I've not been privy to, from the other commissioners as this has moved along. And so this is a time for discussion tonight, but I'll let Mr. White clarify first, because anytime you say that you're going to use some money for the enterprise funds, that's a very scary thought for a city. But we're also looking at a $30 to $34 million debris hauling bill, which exceeds our city budget by $10 million. And keeping in mind that as Mr. White clarifies this, that we will be receiving reimbursement for much of this, and hopefully, if the proper declarations are made by the governor and the president, possibly all of it. So do not let it frighten you as much as it did me as we first began to discuss it. And we are going to, what I really like so far about this is that we've not borrowed any money to this point for the city of Lynn Haven. We've been standing on our own 2 feet and on our finances, so I feel very good about that. Mr. White, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. As you mentioned, I did have a liberty to speak to you, I don't know how many times.
Several times.
A bunch about
Several
this.
times.
As well as several of the commissioners. We spoke frequently about this one-on-one. That way I had individual meetings with them this past week and was able to go through the budget a lot. By going through the budget, I was able to reconcile over $2.5 million that out of this year's budget that I'll be able to utilize for Hurricane Michael relief. So that means a lot of our projects that we had scheduled, a lot of the purchase of vehicles, several things that capital things that I thought we could push hopefully another year and see how this funding mechanism works with FEMA. Be able to do that, cutting out, stormwater projects, roundabout projects, paving, vehicles, not hiring any new positions. In fact, we've had a net loss of 11 employees since the storm. And I have not, we've lost 13, total of 13 positions, but we've hired 2 back. So my intent is to continue that process and not be able to hire a lot more employees, and everybody's just got to suck it up a little bit. Right now, the city's struggling, not struggling, but keep the city from struggling and add more debt on the city. And of course, we got a lot of expenses that are not accumulating right now. The parks are destroyed, so things like having referees, lighting, there's a lot of expenses that was able to forego there. Also, part of this is looking at the enterprise funds. And I know in the past, since I've been city manager, that's been a no-no of mixing the two. And we've done a great job of that. However, Hurricane Michael is a once-in-a-lifetime storm. There's 2 places we get money. We get money from borrowing traditionally, and we get money from our citizens. Several of the enterprise funds are pretty healthy, and it's money we've already collected through the years from our citizens. And part of my funding plan is I'm asking you to approve me to utilize the enterprise funds like I am the general fund, with the notion of making sure that all of them stay solvent and not overborrow from them in case we do have a situation that arises. With that, I'm able to squeeze out, up to $7 million more that we could use to help with this funding cycle. And as the mayor mentioned, this money will be coming back. It's just a timing issue. So at least 87.5% right now. Let's beg for 95. So with that, I ask you to approve me utilizing the enterprise and the general fund to help the city of Lynn Haven recover from Hurricane Michael.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there questions or discussion from members of the board?
Yes, Mayor.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I just wanted to ask, what kind of, what do I want to say, overseeing situation are we going to have on this? Just so that I certainly trust our city manager, but if there were even an accidental mistake made, I hate to see that all fall on his shoulders. And so at the same time, I feel like we need to kind of oversee what's going on. I hate to put that on the mayor's shoulders, but you're there or something. I mean, is there any way that we can keep an eye on it?
I think that's a very fair question, Commissioner Tender. And of course, you have the same access to city manager, the same powers as the mayor has on this board. You can visit him anytime. You can look at what's happening from day to day, as can any member of this board. I will say that for better or for worse, Mr. White and I have been joined at the hip for about the last 102 days. And we've had good days where we've had complete agreement in everything that we've talked about, and we've had days where we didn't speak to each other for several hours because it's been a very grueling operation. And so all that I will tell you is that in looking at this, in my opinion, and in listening to the great counsel of Jay Moody, our accounting consultant, and listening to the opinions of our legal counsel, I feel very comfortable as we can feel in the midst of what we've been through, in proceeding with using money that we already have rather than borrowing $20 or $30 million and paying interest while we wait. There is a cycle, and to simplify it, it's a circular cycle where for example, we've just uploaded, as we'll call it, about $7 million into that cycle of invoices. And those invoices are going right now through the federal portion of FEMA. Once those are released to the funds for that $7 million are released to the state, then those invoices will have to be paid at the state level before the state will release the funds to reimburse us. And so what Mr. White is proposing is that we take these amounts like this, and we have to pay our people who are working for us, the haulers. So we pay them, and we pay them in small bites, as we all talk about the analogy about the elephant. and we take it in small bites, and we take it in these affordable as they can be. And I think this is a good plan, and he's got a couple more things on tonight's agenda we're going to add to this. And I'm feeling that we're on a good path. So that's my thoughts. Any other commissioners, before I open it to the public, do you have questions or comments or concerns? Mr. White, go ahead.
To answer your question also, Ms. Tender, our accounting team will be looking over that, as well as Warren Averett. Jay looks at the financials with myself and sometimes without me. So he'll be looking at it, as well as our auditor will be dealing with it as well. So there's several fail-safes there.
Thanks. Anyone else on the commission? Any comments or questions or concerns from the public? Mr. Walker, please go ahead.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I go out to you. You're correct. It's a good way to look at it, is the enterprise funds. We spent 17 years trying to get the city manager to stop using the enterprise funds to support the police, the fire department, and everything. It took Mr. Schubert to turn that around, okay? That was good. The enterprise funds do make money. We've been telling that for years. We've known that. You get an automatic increase built into it. The next thing I probably hear, and we've heard it already, is this will probably help us alleviate a tax increase. It's common sense. All the citizens can follow this. However, the last time the enterprise funds were used like this, I don't want to scare you, but we found out 5 years later that we had to float bonds for the enterprise funds to take over and take care of a problem we had with the pumps and the mains. So I just wanted to, I personally have been through this with the previous city managers and everything, Mr. Schubert and everything, and we watched the enterprise funds very carefully. You noted that, and I understand that, but be careful.
There is.
It's not a warning. It's just that this happened to us before, and if we slight one thing to favor another, you better be careful. You have to catch up again.
I'm in total agreement with you, except for the fact that we've never had a reason to use it like this.
Yes.
That's the only disagreement I have with you.
That's why I'm saying this, but I'm just saying what happened to us with enterprise funds before, and how the citizens tried to work it back into ad valorem taxes for the services, enterprise funds as a business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Schultz, 509 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm just wondering, is the general and the enterprise funds, does that cover the police and fire department and ambulance services?
It can. The general fund and the budget that the city manager has laid out that we've been following, yes, but yes and no. Mr. White, do you want to address that? Because
yes, the general fund covers, all the general employees themselves, the police department, fire department, things of that nature. A lot of the employees that are in water and sewer is handled through those departments. Of course, sanitation handled through that department. So they each have a vague amount. Also in our budget is a portion of general fund expenses for employees like myself, accounting team, things of that nature. A portion of that goes to each one of those enterprise funds because I have to deal with those on a daily basis, just like a lot of employees, where the general fund will not be carrying the full burden of employee time.
Okay, I'm just concerned about the first line of defense, which is the police department, fire department, and ambulance. Make sure they're funded to operate.
Yes, sir. In what I've done here is built in. There's several million more dollars there, but I've built several conservative fail safes in there.
Thank you. Are there other questions or concerns from the public? They're all good questions, all good concerns. Yes, sir.
Brad Young, 210 Lakeview Terrace. Since the taxes were collected just recently, I assume that we've got a big bubble of cash now.
Better.
And then we spend that bubble down over the course of the year normally.
Yes.
So how much does that factor into your analysis?
Go ahead, Mr. White.
It factors greatly. To let you know, we've already spent over $5 million of city general funds. However, those general funds have supported things that happened during the storm to enterprise funds, such as pumps, things of that nature. So we've utilized general funds already, mixed in with enterprise to pick up payments there because it's hard to break those out. And right now, you know, the city is one big unit, no matter what fund it is. You know, being able to utilize those different funds will help me in the recovery process.
Are there other questions or concerns? Okay, at this time, Mr. White, would you please, was there anything else from the board? I'm sorry, one more time. Mr. White, would you please call the roll for approval?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, it's a unanimous approval, and I think that's very good. I feel very good about that. Moving to item number 16. This is the approval, and this is moving into the next part of finances, the approval to allow the city manager and the mayor to set up and negotiate a revolving line of credit with Hancock Bank, keeping in mind that a line of credit is different than a loan. It's a different way of looking at the interest and that kind of thing. So, Mr. White, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, ma'am. I've yet to receive the paperwork. However, I've been in discussions with Hancock Bank, and right now, hoping that y'all would approve the funding plan of the enterprise and general funds, me be able to utilize those savings from the budget and other expenses that we've been cutting back tremendously. I have asked the Hancock Bank to look at the finances, and we've agreed on a $10 million line of credit. So what I'm asking now, I know that paperwork is on its way, and it will be helpful if the commission so approves myself and you to negotiate the terms and to sign off on the paperwork.
And would you please clarify to the public why we have selected Hancock Bank?
Hancock Bank is, we went out for a banking RFP last year, I think it was, and they were the winner of that, so they are a master bank. They know our finances better than anyone. They also have helped us with the surtax, so distributed it, so that's the reason they was chosen right now.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion from the board regarding this item?
Yes, Mayor.
If I may.
Commissioner Russell, I believe you were first.
The only question I've got on this, I mean, we've already talked about this, and I'm fairly comfortable with everything we've talked about. But you will utilize the funds from the general fund and enterprise fund before we tap into the line of credit, correct?
Yes, I will be utilizing most of those funds first because we already have those in the bank and will not be any interest going against. That's one of the big things, us kind of taking our time. I think it saved the citizens of Lynn Haven a lot of money versus us going out and borrowing a big sum of money, is to get our ducks in a row and try to finance this thing economically.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes, my only question that I had, will the line of credit be used, and I think you just answered that, will it be used after we've utilized general and enterprise funds?
Yes, ma'am, and it'll be used continuously with everything. So what this is there's a revolving line of credit, so I can start paying it back at any time, which will help offset some of the interest costs. However, I foresee this cycle taking quite a while, so every penny I can kind of get my hand on, I would like to put in that circle.
So it's just a good backup, sounds like.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board? At this time, we'll take questions or comments from the public. Mrs. Walker?
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This $10 million line of credit, when we receive it, are we receiving it into the general fund and then you will disperse it out of there where needed? It's not going to come into where you see problem areas. It's just coming into the general fund.
Yes, ma'am. I'll bring in the general fund where we can just start paying.
And then
like we
disperse
normally
it.
would. Yes, ma'am.
Are there other questions? There appear to be none. I didn't miss anybody, right? Mr. White, please call the roll.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so you have that approval to set up and negotiate the revolving line of credit. Again, I'd like to express my appreciation to this commission for everyone unanimously going forward with this. I think that makes everybody feel better about it when we're unified as a board and as a city. Item number 17, and this goes back, before I read it, to what we were talking about earlier about that circle of finance, of how it moves and comes back to us, and we'll get reimbursed as we go along with this process. So this is the approval for the city manager to plan to pay up to $10 million at a time for outstanding debt within the FEMA reimbursement cycle. Mr. White, do you have any further comments about that before I ask for a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Keep mentioning about the FEMA reimbursement cycle. There's a lot of time that could elapse between one stage to the next. So that's why it's real crucial to have companies like Tetra Tech scrubbing the data and making sure when it goes through it's correct. So one thing I'm asking here is we may upload to that at any time. We may upload $15 million. However, I do not have to have the invoices or anything paid until it makes its way all the way to the state. So the FEMA, the federal government's already said it's good with us. We're going to forward right now to 75%. So it goes to the state because the money actually is basically goes to the state, then to us, the sub-grantee. So my thoughts are with the amount of money I want to borrow. I've met several times with their contractors. I actually met today with the contractors and discussed this again with them. They're okay with the way I want to fund to try to keep money coming to them. So the max that I would like to ask that I could pay out at one time, so this is another governor, I guess you'd say, Ms. Tender, for me, is up to $10 million, and that'd be my spending limit with this funding cycle until I get more back in, then I can start back over paying some more.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions from the board?
Mayor, I'd just like to take this opportunity to commend the city manager when we sat down and talked about this cycle. It's very well thought out. It's a great plan. I'm going to tell you that I was actually a little surprised. We talk every week, and I've been waiting for that meeting for a long time, and I was nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. I was getting really nervous because I know we're picking up every day. I know we were hitting $25-30 million mark, but if this plan works and we can do it under these circumstances, it's a home run. It's a great plan that the city manager came up with. And I just wanted to use the opportunity to say that. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Anyone else on the board? Anyone from the public have comments or questions about this plan? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, stands approved. Moving to item number 18, this is approval to allow the city manager to put together conceptual plans to rebuild city facilities and properties. And we have been, believe it or not, when I say we, Mr. White and myself, and we've had some lengthy discussions late into the night when we were sort of living in a tent beside Sutherland Event Center for almost 30 days with other staff members. And we've all done a lot of dreaming and talking about how we could rebuild and how we could put our city back. And I think once again, Mr. White has taken all the suggestions, all those conversations that we've all had, and I think he's come up with a really good conceptual plan. So I'll let you have the floor again, Mr. White, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the Mayor and I had a lot of discussion, as well as the rest of the commission, especially as it relates to a lot of our parks, the Senior Citizen Center, the library. There's a lot of different things that go into it, new PD. One thing that I'm asking today is to allow me to put in some conceptual plans, which would also include one of the things that takes forever is being able to get contracts out because we're hoping we'll be utilizing FEMA dollars, so FEMA has to approve our contracts as well, not only through our normal purchasing policy, but it's also Adam has to work pretty diligently with those, and the Tetra Tech contract got bounced back probably 6, 7, 8 times because we got somebody new every time. So it takes a while for these. So what I'd like to do on this conceptual plan is move forward with putting together RFP, and a design build package, which design build would be much like we did the surtax. And because I don't really have a lot of time to deal with a lot of contractors and dealing with one contractor, one engineering firm, one architect, thank you, would be a lot easier for me and the city and get consistency throughout the city versus trying to piecemeal everything together. I think we need an overall plan. The city of Lynn Haven is a great place to live, great place to work, great place to raise kids. I think the conceptual plans I've heard from everyone has all this in place. You know, some of the things that you know, we're looking at is I was able to look at some property to possibly move City Hall. I will tell you, after conversations with the owner and actually having the property appraised where we need to go, I don't think that's doable. So, you know, I think we probably need to look at where we're at and actually go vertical. So a lot of these plans will include ideas of that nature, and just get some conceptuals together and get the contracts together. When we are ready, we can issue a project and move forward. So that's what I'd like to do.
And before asking for a motion for approval, I would also interject in that we would go back to some things that we did early on with the parks. Once all this conceptual plan is put together, is have several public hearings with a room full of people like this, with everybody having suggestions and an opportunity to have input before a final decision is made on how to do it. So I think that'll be great. So is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, or input from the board?
Mayor, if I may.
Please, Commissioner Russell.
I've had too many discussions with the city manager about this issue to even begin to tell you how many we've had. And I'm happy to hear that you're looking at staying where we are. I know early on you looked at wanting a whole complex, you know, for the entire city, and I felt like that was ripping the heart of the city out. So I'm going to be pushing, obviously, for you to continue to look at the process of going vertical and staying where we are. But I'm glad that you're thinking that way now. And I look forward to the conceptual plans, and I know that we've had a very bad time with this, but I think the future is looking really bright for Lynn Haven. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else on the board have a comment or question?
I do, Mayor.
Commissioner Tender?
I agree with Commissioner Russell completely. I think it's very exciting to go vertical, 3, 4 floors, whatever it takes, as long as the elevators work at all times.
Are there other comments or questions from the board? At this time, comments or questions from the public? Yes, Mr. Schultz.
Yes, Dr. White, can you tell us where you had thought of City Hall might be, if not where it is now?
Down 77, close to, I guess,
Near the Sheriff's Department on
near
the
the
opposite
Sheriff's
side of the
Department
road.
office road.
Those were some of the arguments that we had.
And you're welcome. We knew already what you guys were thinking.
And if I might point out, our arguments were held individually with the city manager. We did not meet outside. So I didn't want to give that impression. Are there any other comments or questions from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Who put together this agenda? That's what I want to know. Okay. It's only been 2 weeks. Item number 19. Approval of resolution number 2019-01-276, authorizing the loan application submittals for the SRF Disaster Assistance Loan Principal Forgiveness Funding, which I really like, for water system immediate need repairs. Mr. White, would you like to report on that item before we ask for a motion?
Yes, ma'am. During the storm, SRF from Tallahassee was able to find $5 million that they wanted to give to Bay County, which also includes municipalities, of course, from disaster damage, and try to help with the recovery. So the city of Lynn Haven jumped on board, and I'd like to actually bring everyone's attention to Panhandle Engineering. They're actually the ones that help us initiate this. So I'd like to thank Chris and his team there for that. Anyway, with this particular one, water, for instance, we had $675,000 worth of damage to the water system that was assessed. with the SRF funding, what they're gonna do is, it's actually a loan, but they're gonna give 75% of the money, forego that as a grant. So with that, out of that 675, they will give us basically, a little over $500,000. Then the remaining 25% we will submit to FEMA for, and they'll pay $126,000 of that, and then that leaves the $42,000, which the state and the city will split. So for $675,000 worth of damage, the city will be out roughly $21,000.
Looks a lot better.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further questions about the explanation, Mr. Whitegate? Any questions from the public? Yes, ma'am.
This is just, Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This is just a technical question. On both items number 19 and 20, the last page of that paperwork that's attached to that resolution, they're saying the city attorney is Robert Jackson. Are we going to correct that?
That's a typo.
That's a typo.
A big one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
On both those
Yes,
numbers.
ma'am. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, stands approved. Item number 20, resolution number 2019-01-277, authorizing the loan application submittals for SRF Disaster Assistance Loan Principal Forgiveness Funding for wastewater system immediate need repairs. Mr. White.
Same thing here, thanking Panhandle. We're looking at $825,000 worth of repairs. And once you do the math, you're looking roughly at almost $26,000 the city had to pay for. So tremendous savings there.
Yes. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the board? I'd like to ask for a round of applause for Chris Forehand and Panel Engineering. Any comments or questions from the public? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Stands approved. Moving to item number 21. This is the approval to suspend the city's residential incentive program. Mr. White, or when Mr. Johnson do that?
Deb, you want to mention that? You brought it up.
Yes.
Go ahead. Commissioner Russell, would you like to report on that item?
Not really, Mayor, but I will.
Thank you very much.
This was one of those issues that is near and dear to me, and I hate to do it, but the city, I feel like, needs to follow suit with the CRA board. The CRA board has suspended all incentives that we offer to residents and businesses because, in light of the hurricane. So I asked that it be put on the agenda that the city does the same thing. The city has an incentive program through the 1911 MAP, and that incentive needs to be suspended, in my opinion, until the city is back on its feet again. I don't know if it's necessary, but it's my opinion that I think we need to suspend all incentive programs, including the youth extracurricular activities as well.
I think we have to stick with this particular item for right now, but you could add to a motion if you'd like to make a separate, when I ask for, I've asked for a motion to suspend it. Did I ask for a motion, Adam? I don't think I've done it yet, have I? So when I ask for a motion, if you want to amend it, then you could do that.
If I may, Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
do you not think that should be suspended too? Yes. Then yes, I would like to make a motion that the city suspend all incentive programs through the 1911 MAP as well as the youth extracurricular activities incentive program.
Okay.
Until the city is financially able to reinstate them.
Okay, could you maybe put a month, I think maybe putting some months on that might be better. Because I don't know when,
When we're gonna be financially stable.
Review it next week.
Okay, yeah, okay. I would like to amend the motion to say that we'll review it at the next budget.
Okay. Is there a second to Commissioner Russell's motion?
Second.
Okay, there's been the motion and the second. Is there any questions or discussion from the board?
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, please, Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we separate
since this is the first I've heard of the children's thing, so
Mhm.
if we could just put that on a future agenda, I'd like to address these separately if we could, please.
Commissioner Russell, would you be amenable to just going ahead with the residential incentive program and bringing the other item up on the next agenda?
Yes, Mayor. I mean, obviously, that's the one that I hold here near and dear to me because I want the money to go to the kids. And I don't want to say that the city manager's twisting my arm to have me add that to it, but he has discussed it with me and said that it needs to be done. That being said, I'll remove the youth extracurricular activity incentive out of the motion now, Mayor.
Okay, so would you restate the motion? I'm sorry to
No, you're
just be
fine.
technical, I just want to make sure it's okay.
You're
If you
fine.
would restate the motion and make it pertain only to this item. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. I'd like to move that the city suspend all residential incentive programs through the 1911 map until the city can readjust it at the next budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion of this item by the board?
Yes, ma'am.
Please, Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. I liked the first motion that said that we would review it in a year. So.
He said the next budget.
Yeah, actually-
He said the next
Did he?
budget.
I thought you said till we're financially stable again.
I did, and the mayor asked me to add a timeline on it, so then I said to review it at the next year's budget.
But that was the first, is the way I understood it, that's the first motion that you,
No, the first time he said the 12 months, and then when he said it again like that, he's just said the budget hearing, which will be the same thing, 12 months or the next budget.
We could just
Mayor,
have a
Mayor, I've got a
clarification
great
on the
idea.
motion.
Yeah.
I've got a great idea, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I rescind my motion. Would Commissioner Finn like to make the motion?
Go ahead.
Yep, I'd be happy to. I'd make the motion so moved as presented.
Okay, I don't think that's.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then
That's
we
not going to
review
work,
it.
Commissioner
Yeah, you're
Brown.
right. I apologize.
Let's try it
Okay.
again.
I move that we approve the item as presented and we review it at the next budget, so within the next year, for the incentive program for the next years.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Is there any question or discussion from the public? Mr. Schultz? And we were going so well here.
Sorry.
That wasn't about you, Mr. Schultz, it was about the board.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. 509 Pennsylvania Avenue. There are some people in the audience don't know what the program is. Could you briefly explain it?
The city's residential incentive program, yes. Mr. White, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, we have the CRA program, residential program, where it helps reimburse people who bring back their homes or businesses to certain standards that, color patterns, look, feel. So we also have a residential program, like Commissioner Russell and Commissioner Friend has mentioned, that's within the 1911 plat, that's not in the CRA. But we also have, within that, we're trying to give them incentives to actually build on these lots and try to fix all these enclaves. So this money actually goes to those enclaves. So if you're buy a lot within that area, the 1911 plat, and decide to build a house, we'll help you with some of the cost.
Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Walker?
Yeah, I think it was a good question, but I think, what about the children's program? I didn't.
No, we left that out. It's
Oh,
not
you're gonna
included
leave that out.
until the
Okay,
next
thank
meeting.
you.
Yes. Are there other questions?
Yes, there is.
Okay, go ahead.
Like Columbo, yes, there is.
Go ahead.
It's time limit, and it goes for a certain extended time into the budget. Are we talking the budget itself, or midterm correction, or any correction in between that?
We talked the next year's annual budget.
The full,
Yep.
full thing? Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, like Columbo.
Actually, you can't come back a second time on the same item. If it's short, I will allow it. Go ahead. Because you didn't use your 3
Give us
minutes.
a dollar amount on some of these items, please.
I think that budget item has, Ben, help me, $20,000 or $25,000 in it? 20,000.
Okay, thank you. $20,000 savings there. No further questions or concerns? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, it stands approved. Commissioner Russell, I felt a little bit of weariness in your approval there. Item number 22, Resolution number 2019-01-278, amending the adopted general fund, community redevelopment, and the approved enterprise fund budgets for fiscal year 2017-2018, which is contained in the packet. Is there, first of all, would you please read the resolution, Mr. White?
Resolution number 2019-01-278, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the adopted general fund, Community Redevelopment Agency, and the approved enterprise fund budgets for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion for approval and there's been a second. Are there any questions or discussions for this budget? Mr. Walker?
Did you ask it from the public yet?
I asked if there were...
Technically, you didn't ask for the public.
Did I not ask for the public? I'm sorry, I've done it so many times I can't remember. Did I ask if there were questions from the board? I apologize. Okay, now, are there questions or concerns from the public? Mrs. Walker?
I hate to do this to Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I hate to do this to Mr. White. I noticed that the agenda item, the line item on the agenda says community redevelopment. I could find no CRA budget online with the packet. That's number one. And I looked twice just to make sure.
Okay.
Bear with me one moment. It was in mine, undoubtedly it was not in yours. I do apologize.
Thank you. I know I'm not crazy.
There was only 2 line items, and
Okay.
I'd be happy to share those with you.
Go ahead and read it out.
One of them was the operating supplies, budget variance of $1,600 that was transferred over, which was due to a capital outlay of equipment, $1,600.
The second question
Yes, ma'am.
is a huge question, Mr.
Okay.
White.
Go ahead.
Or whoever. I pulled the 4 pages of the
Okay.
budget amendment, and I then took my 2017-2018 original budget. I tried to mesh them and find in my original budget, or your original budget, and the amended budget, the figures that you're mentioning on the amended budget, and I could not do so. So I am thoroughly confused why I can't do that. I know, and I hate to keep saying this is done differently than we have done in the past.
Thank goodness. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When we used to get an end-of-year budget, it used to look exactly like the original budget, but with the amended, so I could see everything.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
if something changed, like a capital outlay item change, I could see it. I cannot see it on here because you don't list that. So I would...
The issue becomes is the amount of information, which we do have, and I'll be gladly to share with you.
I would love
Yes,
for
ma'am.
somebody to
That's not a
explain,
problem.
and then it wouldn't happen again that I
Yes, ma'am.
can't.
That's not a problem, and it's just, the main thing is pulling out the accounts that actually was affected from mid-year.
Right.
And true those up.
Okay.
So I'll be glad, if you wanna call me, I'll be glad to sit down with you.
And I hate to stress you anymore.
No,
because
ma'am.
Richard
No,
and
ma'am.
I
That's
have
what
been
I'm here
talking about how stressful everything has
No,
been.
ma'am. That's
I
what I'm here
appreciate,
for.
I appreciate
Not a
it.
problem.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussions of this item? Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I notice it mentions the CRA in there. Has the CRA board approved this end-of-year budget for 2017-18? I say this because we haven't had any board meetings since the hurricane dealing with the advisory board.
And I would just say that our town was destroyed, Mr. Walker.
I
We're doing the
understand
best we
that.
can.
I understand that, but
And I hear what you're saying.
The excuse that was given to me that they couldn't get in contact with the advisory board.
Well, I don't know that it was an excuse. I think it was a fact.
Hmm.
When they said they couldn't get all the members, I think that it was a fact that they couldn't get them. The
Okay.
phones have not been working until just recently.
Okay, all right, all right.
I see the doubt in your
withdraw the
I don't mean to
comment.
sound impatient, Mr. Walker,
No,
but I am impatient because none of the boards have been meeting. We are working on getting everyone contacted, and I just want to again say, I think everyone's doing the best they can under the circumstances
understand
we're
that.
living. But I do hear your concerns.
I qualify one thing. The CRA board is made up of you.
I realize that. Thank you for clarifying though. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who has a concern or a comment this evening about this item? Okay, Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so that does stand approved. And moving on to item number 23, the approval of the Safe Routes to School Grant application. Ben Junkie, did you have any comments you'd like to make on this? And I remember watching the presentation when you did it recently, and I think it's a great program, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an application to request some funding from DOT to build some new sidewalks here in Lynn Haven as part of their Safe Routes to School program. This application is actually a team effort. We've been working together, the city, the CRA, different city departments of Lynn Haven Elementary School to identify the need of sidewalks around Lynn Haven Elementary School, identified needed sidewalks on New York Avenue, Alabama, Georgia, and 9th Street, and basically summarized all of this in this application and are ready to submit it to DOT for approval.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on this. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Just one.
Can't get one in.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion from the board? There appears to be none. Are there any questions from the public regarding this? Sure, Mr. Walker.
I don't want to incur your wrath, but
There is no wrath to incur. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you. This was publicized in the newspaper and things. The newspaper wasn't published. The News Ledger has not been published. There's no notification to the CRA board about this program. It went under the banner of the CRA. You and I both attended. You were there for part of it. The visit list was signed. Half those people were not there on that visit. There was very few, actually, there was only one citizen there. And the comments he made were presented to that person there, and they were not considered at all. There was no, this is under the banner of the CRA. Now I'm looking at it here and it says city. Have we removed it from the CRA, which they are not aware of, and given it to the city? It's fully a city function.
And I'll let Mr. Jonke comment on that question, but I will say that I do believe that the comments that you made earlier, it is important, for the board to convene. We have several other boards, and we are working diligently to bring that about. But at the same time, as you pointed out, this board is the CRA board, and they're well aware of what's happening, even though there's not been that separatism, which we need to have, and I agree with you on that. But at the same time, I'm fully aware that every board member is aware. And I'll let Ben Jonke also comment on your question at this time. Go ahead.
So this application, this project is one of the projects that was approved by the CRA board as part of our current fiscal year. So it was approved back in summer of 2018. This application got delayed because of the storm. And our deadline is the end of January. So
I think that explains it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Walker, did you have another question?
I understand that,
Okay.
but it's not a CRA advisory board. We were not clued in on it. I'm not speaking as the advisory board, but we usually do get involved with that.
And usually being
we
the...
should. We
yes.
should.
So
And
I appreciate your comments and your concerns. I do. Thank you, so. Okay, moving forward, this is, I think, a great, it is a grant application. It's something positive for the community. Is there any other discussion? Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And then item number 25, we're at the last item. Discussion and approval of the Carr, Riggs, and Ingram engagement letter authorizing audits for the year ending September 30th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'm going to be the evil one at this point to make just a comment. I had a rather spirited discussion with Mr. White about this item. As you probably all know, from the moment I became mayor, I've asked that we look into having a different auditing company. Not that I think there's anything wrong with the one that we have now. It's just good accounting practices, best practices to change your auditing accounting firm up to every 5 years. And so that's what I've tried to do. I've been voted down every time, but I will say that I will reluctantly agree with Mr. White at this time because of the constraints that we're under with all of the FEMA auditing, with all of the additional auditing that Jay Moody and his firm, Warren Averett, are doing, that I think it would be prudent for the city to remain where they are at this time with this firm. But be forewarned that when it comes up again, that I will be more vocal. So that's what I had to say. Anyone else?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
I had the same discussion with the city manager.
You don't say.
It was my understanding that we were gonna put this out for an RFQ, to see. Now, I'm not saying we were gonna switch from car rigs, but I wanted to see other firms. And he stressed to me how much stability needs to be in place. With the assurance from him that we'll address this next year, and hopefully the board will put out an RFQ next year. Again, like you said, I reluctantly agreed to go along with this, so.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any further discussion or comments from the board?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Tender.
I agree with Commissioner Russell on this as well. And I think that we need to really make sure that we put out for bids early enough to have the opportunity to look at different companies.
Thank you for that comment. Anyone else? Anyone from the public? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Brad Young, 210 Lakeview Terrace. I have been dismayed each year that I've heard the report by the independent auditor. It bears no resemblance to any audit that I've ever seen done for commerce. I don't know what we have in the way of an engagement letter, but as far as I'm concerned, it's worthless. And since we're needing to find every spare dollar, do we even need to have an audit?
Yes.
We have to do that, and attorney on his head, yes, sir. But I appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Okay, at this time, before I adjourn, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you all for the spirit of democracy that is alive and well, despite the fact our city has been practically destroyed. God bless everybody. See you next time. This meeting.
No, we didn't have a vote on it.
Oh dear God, I didn't vote.
You tried. It was a good try, though. It was a really good try. I'll give you that. It was an awesome try.
Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Russell.
Yes.
Commissioner Tender.
Yes.
Mayor Ash.
Yes, meeting's adjourned.
Oh.